目前，极左派在美国社会搅动了很多事情。根据前苏联克格勃叛逃者尤里班茨诺夫的说法，共产党其实是利用这些左派来搞乱社会。一旦他们达到夺取权力的目的之后，第一个要铲除的就是这些极左派。所以呢，他称他们是有用的傻瓜。汉森教授怎么看呢？
Yeah, that happened. That term actually originated right during the Bolshevik Revolution when Lenin had a very minority of the anti-Tsarist forces. There's no way the Bolsheviks should have took over. The Mensheviks, the White Russians, the Constitutionalists were much more numerous, but they weren't organized. And they didn't have a propagandist like Trotsky. And what happened was a lot of people thought that this disciplined Bolshevik revolution was going to win eventually. And so they started getting co-opted. And it was exactly that. A lot of the aristocrats, the large owners, their children were very wealthy. They thought it was neat to wear a little Bolshevik cap. And they started being romantically involved in the Bolshevik movement. Wealthy people. And they turned on the Tsar. And the Kerensky socialists did too. They turned on the idea of a constitutional republic in the Tsar, and they flirted with, and then what happened when they took control? They slaughtered them. And they slaughtered them, first of all, because they had the most contempt for them, because not only did they think they were enemies of the people, but they were stupid. And so they made fun of them that way. And I think that's my limited experience with communist Chinese, and I've talked to a lot of people from the Chinese government, and that is that they have more respect for people who stand up to them and are strong Americans than they do the left, because they don't feel, I don't know, they don't like people fawning on them like the left does. They find them useful, but I had a talk with a Chinese diplomat once, and she said to me, she's talking about the Obama administration on the left, and she was exasperated because she could not figure out why they didn't stand up to China. And it was off the record. And she said, every country puts its interests first. And he doesn't put his interests first. And so he's either stupid or he's doing some trick against us. Now, I want to know which it is. And then she said, why are all these people in that administration letting us do stuff? Spratly Islands is what she was talking about. And we're trying to figure out why this is. And you're a journalist, you should tell us. And I said, you tell me. And she said, they have to be trying to lure us to overreach and try to do too much so that they can smash us. I started laughing, and then she said, because the alternative is impossible. Nobody would be that stupid for what we do. And she said that. And she later turned out to be a very notorious person, you know, that was in the news, that she came and would call you when you wrote an article she didn't like. She'd come down from the San Francisco consulate and complain. And I met her once or twice, always with a bunch of people in the room, because she was pretty, you know, she'd talk off the record if it wasn't taped, unless she was taping it. But my point is that she was pretty cynical about the left and thought that they, I guess their main worry, the communist Chinese, about how the American left is that they can fool China into thinking that they run things. So if they move on Taiwan and there's nobody that objects, that would delude them into thinking they can get away with it. Whereas there's a grassroots bunch of American patriots that would get angry, and then the left wouldn't calibrate that. And so then China might, this is what she was trying to explain to me, that they would try to overrule the left-wing government, just grassroots furor. And that might be true.
那么美国人是不是真的认得清楚谁才是美国真正的敌人呢？
When I've talked to leftists and they said, well, Trump was racist, I said, who killed the most Asian people in the history of the 20th century? Think of all the Dutch, French in Southeast Asia, British in Indonesia, Dutch or Americans killing Japanese in World War II, or Japanese killing Chinese in World War II. I said it's still Mao. He killed more Asian, more Chinese people than all of them put together. And so this is a very deadly government because it doesn't value human life. And so, but they're ignorant, they don't understand that. And China was really brilliant how they did in Trump. I think they had a lot to do with his defeat because I think they really sent out messages that they were there to help. The World Health Organization was multilateral and utopian and wonderful, and the two were working together to stop this virus. And Trump did this travel ban. He was racist. And then the World Health Organization, he got out of it and abandoned it. And China wanted to help. And Bill Gates said that China wanted to help, and so did Dr. Fauci and all these sober judicious. And here was this crazy Trump using the Wuhan virus as if it was the Spanish flu or the Ebola virus or the West Nile virus. He was using a geographical name, and how dare he do that? So that was brilliant. It came from China, and I think they spoon-fed it to the left, and the left loved it.
最后，关于怎么样认识中共，汉森教授有什么样的建议呢？
Yeah, I think we have to start using the word communist. After the McCarthy era, there was reluctance to do so. Even though McCarthy was a demagogue and lied a lot, there were people in the State Department and in Hollywood that were registered communist and actually, in some cases, helping the Soviet Union. So I think people have to get more outraged. So if Dianne Feinstein's chauffeur for 20 years says that he was feeding information to the communist Chinese, or Eric Swalwell says he had a liaison with somebody from Chinese government while he was on the House Intelligence Committee, or if Stanford University does not report that it got $65 million in gifts from Chinese-related companies, Chinese communist-related companies, or that it hired a visiting neural researcher from China to be on its faculty who actually didn't disclose that she was a member of the Chinese military or affiliated with the military, then we have to call them out. So how dare you do that? That's horrible. How can you be so reckless? How can you allow that government? We got to publicize more what they're doing to the Uyghurs, what they're doing on everything from organ harvesting to sterilizations to the treatment of Tibetans. And we've got to, I think Taiwan's got to be much more aggressive in telling Americans that it is the true China. It's the spirit of China. It is the democratic China that people, like, from the very early history of China, wanted it someday. And it's not some right-wing US propped up, and that's how the left looks at it. We should be telling people that Taiwanese are the authentic inheritors of, I think we should, myself, if I was involved, I would not let anybody from the Chinese Communist Party into the United States. I would be very liberal in expanding the number of Taiwanese Americans that want to come from Taiwan. If they want to come from Taiwan, more power to them. They've only enriched the United States. But I would not allow people from, if they're going to come into the United States and they're students, or they want to have extended visas, and they have any tie whatsoever with the Communist Party in China, they should not be allowed in the country, because we know what happened. They become conduits of information to the Chinese Communist Party. And the greatest perpetrators of that are academics and universities. So I think we should be much more receptive of Taiwan, people from Taiwan, and much less from mainland China if they have demonstrable ties with the Communist Party. And I think, and you and I know that, I think most of your listeners do, if you live in mainland China and you qualify to be admitted into an American university or have a professorship, whether you like it or not, there's going to be some tie with the Chinese Communist Party, or they would not allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. Or if they did allow it to happen, they wouldn't allow it to happen long without a settling up of obligations.
Yeah, they have your family members there.
Yes, they have your family members.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody tells me. I have a very good friend who escaped from Tiananmen Square. He's in the U.S. government. And the first thing he said, I'll never be free until I get my family members out, because that's what they've threatened me with. And that's what communists do in Cuba. That's exactly what they did in Hungary and Czechoslovakia. They threatened people who came to the West by going after their family members to shut up or we're going to go after them.
好，观众朋友，感谢您的收看。如果您有任何的想法或者评论的话，欢迎您留言。我们下次节目再见。